Welcome back to another episode of Music Maniacs with Side After Dark. We're Side After Dark out of Brooklyn, New York. I'm Dan Berg.
Sifa Graffiti.
We're your new favorite band.
Uh-huh.
And we got an interesting topic today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'll go ahead and say right off the bat that this will be our last podcast for a little bit. I don't know, maybe this like a month or two. We just have a lot of other projects that we want to like kind of put a lot of time into.
Yeah.
And the podcast, it takes a lot of time to, make it right. So we're taking a little step back from the podcast after this to work on some other things that I think you guys are all really going to like. So make sure you follow us on the main Side After Dark channel as well if you don't already.
Yeah.
But because this is going to be our last podcast for a little bit, we wanted to do something special for you guys, right? And we wanted to give you a little bit of insight into who we are, who Side After Dark is.
Who is Side After Dark?
And, obviously most of the time when we do the podcast, we have, a topic, a band, artist, or whatever that we talk about in depth. And we thought it would be fun for this episode if the topic was Side After Dark.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Hey, what's up? It's us. So we're going to basically talk about how we got into music, how we met, how we ended up doing all this with the podcasting and the YouTube stuff, so you can kind of get an idea of like our actual story, like in depth. So if you're a fan of us at all, I think you're really going to like this. If not, maybe we're going to just like talking about ourselves for an hour.
Oh, here we go.
So, how do we do this? How do we start? Do we talk about like where we were both like born and like grew up and like how we got into music and then how we met? Like, I don't know.
We met at an open mic. I
feel like
believe you know that.
Yeah, I feel like we should start at like us separately being like born and raised and getting into music and then how we eventually met and started doing all this, right?
Yeah, we meet at the open mic, and how did we come to the open mic?
Yeah. Exactly. So, I'm from Florida, right?
Mm-hmm. You are?
Clearwater, Florida. Born and raised.
I didn't know that.
I didn't really get into music until I was like 11 or 12. I never really like thought about it. Like it was just like background noise to me. I remember people asking me what kind of music I liked, and I would just be like, rock and roll. I didn't even really know what it meant.
Your spirit knew.
I was just like, yeah, this is what I feel like this is the cool thing to say. But I just never really cared about music until, and I just gave this whole story when we did a podcast on the Doors. But the first time I actually cared about music was when I heard the Doors. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then like after that one experience, I just started getting into all this other classic rock and like, then like punk rock and hip hop and reggae and all this other shit. And then, that's where I've started getting into music. What about you?
I have always been into music. My father was a musician, so by the time I was 11, I was like music obsessed. I was already like taping stuff from the radio. My dad used to babysit us by having us fall asleep to the radio. Nice. So a lot of songs I knew. But I didn't start writing music or becoming a musician until I was in college. Like it was like I was just writing poems, like poetry. And then my boyfriend at the time was like, "You should." I was like singing them in a way, and he was like, "You should start rhyming them. You should like make rhymes and stuff." So I was always into the arts, and I was always into music, but I didn't start to put it to work until I was like 19.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I was probably about 19 the first time I actually was in like a legit band and stuff. Because I tried for a long time. Like when I started playing guitar when I was like 11, and I wanted to start a band in Clearwater. But the problem was that nobody played instruments, and everybody else that did play an instrument also played guitar. Okay. So if I was going to start a band, it was going to be like a band of 5 guitar players and nothing else. And maybe that could have been cool. Maybe now I could have thought of a cool way to do it. It's like, okay, you do like a percussive guitar and you do like the mid and you do the high. Yeah. Maybe that could have been cool. Yeah. But at the time, I was like, I can't just start a band with 5 guitar players. Right. What is this? No. What are we, Leonard Skinner? So yeah, like I was always trying to do it, but like nothing ever really happened until I got to college. And I met some people there that I was in like a punk band with.
Same for me. It was more like rap. I was in college, and I started dating a guy, and then he was in a group with 2 other people, and then that fell apart, and we became a group together, and then joined in with his brother. So we were like 3 in a group, and we were just writing music and like going to different producers in the neighborhood, making beats. when you're like in the neighborhood, you can kind of stop doing what you're doing because like the neighborhood, you just become a person at the studio listening to beats, rhyming and stuff like that. You'll do a show here or there. For some reason, like at that younger age, a show was such a huge deal that it could just be done once in a year, you know, and it would be such a big thing or whatever. Or we've written one song, 2 songs, and like that could be like a big deal. So it's like in the 4 years that we were together as a band, we only wrote like 4 songs together.
Oh, really?
Yes, like when I think it, like I thought about it a couple years ago, I thought back to it. I remember thinking like that was such a project, like it was such a thing to do that, but we only had like 4 songs. We had a lot of other things because we read about like the music business and stuff like that. So we had like our logo done, we had our LLC done, and like we were driving out to shows like in New York and stuff like that. We were getting to know different people in the industry. And we got like a small deal with like Chivas Regal. They were doing, I swear it's like weird. Alcohol companies were making like soundtracks with like songs and stuff like that.
When was this about?
This was like 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and it was like Chivas Regal, and then we did a deal with this guy, and we put a song on like the Chivas Regal soundtrack. It was like so weird. And we did the performance too, downtown Manhattan. They had a whole big thing and we performed there. So like we really thought we were like doing it because we were making steps.
Right.
But it's just like when I think back, I'm just like, wow, we only had like 4 songs.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of cool though if you could get that far on only 4 songs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Huh. That's actually really interesting. I never do. See, this is why, because we're gonna find out things about ourselves doing this. You guys don't know, because I never knew that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so that was like your first like real like
thing. Yeah.
Thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So my real thing was like I was the same age as you, really. Punk band of kids I met in college, and the thing is, the way that this band went. I slowly, because I was like really shy when I was younger, and I didn't really like being in like the spotlight and stuff. So like I was literally like playing guitar in like the back and like trying to like not really be noticed. And the way that the band progressed, I just slowly had to take more responsibility in the band.
Okay.
And I slowly kind of like got over my fear of that. Because the weird thing that happened was we were all jamming, just like a bunch of people. And everybody, again, wanted to play guitar. Yeah. And shout out to my friend Sam, who was, like, humble enough, basically, to... not trying to sound like a dick, but we were like, who's going to play the guitar? And he was just like, you can play guitar. You're better than me. I'll play bass. And he just, like, switched like that. Okay. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. So, but then I was, like, the lead guitar player, and we also had a rhythm guitar player who was this other guy. And, like, I was the lead guitar, but I was, like, still, like, scared to, like, be in the front. Okay. So there was like 5 people in the band at first. 2 guitars, drums, bass, singer. Eventually we had to get a different singer because the other singer would never show up to practice, blah, blah, blah. So then it was 5 people, same lineup. And then eventually we realized that the other guitar player wasn't really holding it down and that I could basically play both of our parts at the same time. So then we became 4 people. So then I became all of the guitar. And then... that new singer left, so then it just became 3 people, and it was me singing and playing guitar, and the bass player singing as well, with the drummer. So I slowly went from like being 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 3 put in the front. So by the end of it, I was like, I actually like was more like confident and like knew how to like be on stage more. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. So it was cool. It was kind of like not interval training. What is it like when you had to like go right into your fear? Like dive into your fear. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, all I know it is as feel the fear and do it anyway, but I don't know the actual saying for it.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what happened with me. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's a good progression though. Like to like bone up on your chops and stuff. So what happened with us, we were like making music and stuff like that, but I think like just like you were saying, like that's pretty far to go with just 4 songs. I feel like things started happening too fast for our minds.
Like you weren't ready for it?
Right, exactly. People started doing crazy things, really crazy things that they shouldn't have been doing, and it's just like
your bandmates?
Yeah. So it just started getting a little too wild, and it's just like, okay, one of them, like we were supposed to go do a performance, or we had just gotten this deal and it was going to go really, really well. Oh, this is what happened. Okay, so we knew this big weed guy, right?
All right.
He was like one of the hugest weed guys ever.
In Brooklyn or
Yes.
like in the city or like?
I feel like it's the region. Like he was pretty big.
So so he was moving a lot of weight.
Yeah, like bales.
Okay.
Like yeah.
Bales of weed. That's fun to say.
So it's like we wanted to start like our own record company and stuff like that, and the guy was gonna give my boyfriend, my husband at the time,
he was gonna front the money.
He was gonna front the money. He was just like, so I know
that's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
That's real dangerous.
So he's like, I'll do it. I'll give it to you. And it's like it's just funny how things work out. So it's like once we find out that information, it's like we're on our way. And that night we were like, okay, we know how weird things can get. Like, I don't know. Sometimes you do certain things. I'm going to explain myself. We were like, okay, so we get the deal.
Yeah.
We're like, don't go outside and do anything crazy. We got something really nice that just happened for us. Let's kind of tread really lightly. So one of us decides, it's not me, decides to go out and get like so drunk, like drunker than they normally got, and just really, really plastered. Like after at the hospital, people were telling us that like I've never even seen him so drunk. He was going so wild. He was like, not in a bad way. He was just really being a goofy life of the party kind of guy.
Yeah.
But you could tell he was just really excited because we're going to the next level, you know. And with like my ex and stuff, they weren't kind of used to having like a lot. Like I had grown up like in a house and all these things like that, and they grew up kind of different. So it's just like, I feel like one of them was just really going crazy. And then he gets in a car after he's at the diner, and then he's leaving in the car, and the car gets T-boned. It gets T-boned, and he ends up in the hospital.
When he was drunk?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was in the car with whoever was driving was drunk too.
Okay. But he wasn't driving.
He wasn't driving.
Okay.
No. And it's like, this was like right by his house. Like this is around the corner. He didn't even go out far. But it's just like,
they say that like 90% of accidents are within like a mile of your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like at the diner that's around the corner from like our area, and he gets T-boned, and he injures his C1 and his C7
vertebrae.
Yeah. He fractured that or something like that, and that's high. That's here. That's right up in the neck. Like, so it's like he was so messed up for so long. So that kind of started like chipping away at our existence, you know. And then after that, one of us went to jail, not me, you know. So it's like that too, that started kind of like fragmenting us and stuff like that. It was hard for us to really to stay together, I think. So because one of us went away for like, it was like more than a year. It was like 2 years. And it's just like,
so it was prison then.
Yeah.
Okay,
it wasn't jail, it was prison. Yeah, exactly. It's
Oof.
different. So it's just like, well, what do you do? And we had like a whole squad. Like, I remember we talked about naming your group after like the city and stuff like that you're from and stuff. And at that time we were Brooklyn's Most Wanted, but that was like a lot of people. That wasn't just the band. It was like,
that was the whole crew.
So they were like, how come you're Brooklyn's Most Wanted? You know, it was like, it gets like that. You
That's
know, it's
so
like,
dumb though.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So people were upset because of that, but we had like, it was like a rap crew. It was like a squad of different rappers. So, and Brooklyn's Most Wanted, us three, we were like the main, only because a lot of them had been rapping way before us and stuff. We were the main because we were the most driven. We were like, we got to get this record label. We got to get this LLC. Like, we got to read books about the music business. So that's why we were kind of like at the helm. But when one of us went to jail and one of us went into an accident, the rest of them were like, what do we do now?
So it was almost like they lost the leader.
Yeah, basically.
The head was cut off the snake.
Yeah. So that just like, that broke everything apart. So I was just like on my own for a long time, just like as a solo musician, just writing stuff, working with different producers, like doing some open mics once in a while, entering competitions, contests and stuff like that. And I got to a contest. I did pretty well. There was a contest that Lil Wayne was doing and it was at the Apollo. And I ended up, like, it was like different rounds. You entered your first video of yourself, and then you went to a second round, and then the third round was at the Apollo. So I actually got to the Apollo.
Nice.
And I actually played a little bit of the guitar. I didn't win, just in case you don't know.
That's pretty cool though. You played at the Apollo.
Yeah. I was like, wow, my friends came to see me and everything too. So, but that was it. After that, I was just working with really great guitarists and really great bassists in the city, but we weren't gelling that well, you know, and stuff. So I was just floating around.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to think of the last thing that I said. I was in the band. It ended up being 3 people. So that was while we were in college. We were all at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. And so yeah, I remember we all graduated and all of our friends were like, "Oh, I'm going to go be a fucking lawyer. I'm going to go be a doctor." And we were like, "Well, we're going to just like stay and play music and like not do anything else." So I remember we all rented a house together, the 3 of us, and we all put all of our equipment in the living room and we would practice every day. Every day at 7. It was either 6 or 7. Either we had a schedule where like we are practicing every day at this time.
That's so dope.
Right? So it was interesting because I mean the way that we were doing it, I mean literally like I was working like a job. It was like paying me like barely above minimum wage because we were living in this like decrepit ass house that like it was like $300 a month, and our landlord was like a crackhead or some shit. Well, it was Florida, so it was probably meth actually. But you know, he was just like he was missing some teeth, and like he forgot to get the rent from us like many days.
Whoa!
Like I'm actually getting ahead of myself here. So I had a job where I was working barely. Just enough to afford like groceries and weed, basically. Like there was some days it's like, okay, am I gonna get a sandwich or am I gonna put more gas in my tank? You know, like that kind of shit. Because I'm just working as little as possible so I can put as much time into playing music as possible.
Right.
And the only reason that we were able to do that is because we were living in this fucking rundown house that was falling apart. I mean, literally the front door didn't even actually like close. It was like it only closed if you bolted the lock shut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you just went like that, it wouldn't stay. You had to bolt it.
Okay.
So it was a piece of shit house, right? But again, like $300 a month.
Yeah.
And we're playing music every day. And we're at this point we're going out on the road too. On the weekends we'll drive to Jacksonville, we'll drive to Orlando, we'll go to like Panama City Beach or whatever.
Yeah.
And just like all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. My drummer had a truck, so we just loaded our shit in the truck. Bang bang, you know, that kind of shit. And but yeah, our landlord, he was on something. I don't know what the fuck he's not alive anymore.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace to Doug. I'm not gonna say his last name obviously, but he was a good guy. But like literally like we moved in and at first he didn't even give us a lease. And like I worked in residential leasing at the time. That was my day job. Okay. So I was like, nah, man, like we need a lease. Like we need something saying that we live here, or you could technically kick us out at any time. Yeah. Legally, we're squatters. Yeah. If you don't give us some kind of piece of paper. So he's like, man, yeah, I'll write y'all a lease. So we write us a lease for, you know, whatever it is, not a lot of money, for 1 year. That 1 year expires, and he never gave us another lease. And he also just like stopped asking us for the rent.
Wow.
Like most of the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, so we would literally be like, he would go 3 months without talking to us or asking us for rent at all. And then on the 4th month, he'd be like, hey, can I get the rent? And we'd be like, okay. So we give him 1 month of rent to see what he would say. Yeah. And he would say, thanks. And we were just like, wow. So we basically lived for free. Yeah. In that house for like the 2nd year that we lived in that house. And then we made like a tour. We did like a full tour of the East Coast. Like that was something we were building up because we were always playing in Florida. And I was like, we should do a tour up to New York City because my sister already lived here, and that will come back in the story later. My sister was already living in Brooklyn at the time. So I was like, we should do a tour from Florida. We can start in South Florida and just go all the way to the East Coast and end up in New York. So we got like a booking agent to like help us with like venues and all that shit. So we did a whole thing on the East Coast. I remember we had a show in Brooklyn, like downtown by right by Grand Army Plaza somewhere. Okay. And that was July 2nd. Holy shit, it's almost exactly a year ago. Yeah. It's almost exactly like 5 years ago, I guess. Wow. Because it's July 1st right now. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So we played a show July 2nd, and then we had a few days off. Like our next show wasn't until like July 6th. So we were staying at our friend's house in Westchester. This girl that we went to college with, her dad was fucking loaded. He was like friends with Bon Jovi and shit. Okay. Like this guy, he's like, we stayed at their house. They had like an indoor pool, an outdoor pool. It was like a 3-story fucking house with an elevator. I'm like, I've never been in a house this nice. Yeah. And we were just crashing there. Her dad didn't give a fuck. Like, I asked him one time what he does. He's like, I own a few streets of businesses in the Bronx. A few streets of businesses is what he said. And I'm like, all right, shit. So we would take the train every morning down from Westchester and come into New York for like that 4 days off and just fuck around and just like get drunk in the middle of the day and just like walk around. I ended up breaking my foot playing basketball during the middle of this. And like in a weird way, that was kind of like the beginning of the end of the band.
Okay.
Because so after I broke my foot, I didn't know it was broken until the tour was done. That's a different story I'll get to. But I twisted the fuck out of it playing basketball. I thought I just sprained it. It was a little worse than that. So we had a few more shows that I played on a broken foot. I'm like hobbling around. Like I'm literally like sitting here like this, like icing my foot. And then they're like, okay, you guys go on in 5. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So then we finished the tour. And by the time we got back to Florida, we were just all so sick of each other. Because we lived together, and then not only did we live together, but we went on this tour when we were like sharing motel rooms, and we were already a little bit annoyed of each other because like my drummer did a lot of drugs, and he was kind of unhinged.
Yeah.
And by the time we got back from the tour, we were we weren't on the best terms, and then also he wasn't as motivated as me and the bass player to like really be like, no, this is what we're trying to do. We got to be on it, right?
Yeah.
So after the tour, I remember this vividly. He had his drums not set up in the living room. And again, I told you, we had everything set up in the living room. All the amps, the drums, everything, right in the middle of the living room. We got back and he just put all his drums there. He didn't like set up the kit. He just like threw them all in the corner.
Yeah.
And then me and my bass player were like, okay, we're always the ones saying that we need to practice at this time. Let's see how long it takes him to say, let's practice.
Okay.
Which is really petty now that I think about it. Because we were just sitting there, I'm like, he's not even going to set his drums up? What the fuck is he doing? And it was like a month later, and the drums still weren't set up.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem.
And we were just like, clearly he isn't about this like we are. So it was really awkward. Like, I actually wasn't there when it happened, but my bass player told him that he was out of the band while I was like away. So like literally like when we walked in, when I was at the house, there was one situation. I left. I came back, completely different situation. And we lived with him. So it was really fucking awkward.
Yeah.
And this was a kid I'd known since I was 12. I met him at like summer camp.
Wow.
And I'm still cool with him now. Like I told him that I don't like have hard feelings. I'm just like, clearly we just weren't as dedicated. And he's like, I get it. So like I'm still cool with him now, but it was really rough for a second.
Yeah. That must have been tough. Him living there and being out of the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
That's where the drugs help.
They either help or they hurt. I don't know. It depends on what your perspective is, I guess. But no, the thing that's actually funny is, so me and the bass player, we actually were like, so when we came up here and we were fucking around in the city, we were like, this is the fucking best. I want to live here. Like we all kind of said that. So after the things fell apart, me and the bass player are like, yo, we should move up to New York together and start a new band up there. And we were talking about it for months because my sister called me and was like, hey, I heard, shit's falling apart down there. Like, if you want, you can just like move up and like stay on my couch and like figure it out. And I was like, all right, shit. I don't want to just quit music. Right. So I'm like, I'll do that. So we were talking about, I was going to move in with my sister. He had a cousin that was here. So we were like, we're both going to go. And then one day, this is how I knew that this wasn't actually going to happen. One day, after talking about living in New York and how we're going to afford it because it's expensive as fuck and all that shit, one day he just comes up to me, he's just like, yo, wouldn't it be like sick to just like live in Thailand for like $100 a month? And I was like, I'm like, that's like the exact opposite of moving to New York City. And then as soon as he said that, I'm like, this kid's not moving to New York.
No.
And so I moved to New York, stayed with my sister, and he moved to Thailand. And he's still there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in years now because it's so hard to like, because he even doesn't even like have service over there and shit.
Yeah.
I keep trying to like schedule a call with him to like catch up and it just like never happens. But I just see his like Instagram stories. I think he's like riding motorcycles in Thailand and shit. Like, I don't even know what this fucking guy's doing.
Tiny monkeys on his back.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, all that shit happened. And then yeah, my sister was like, come move up. I'm like, all right. So then I moved here.
All right.
Yeah,
I was just floating around. So I was always into different types of music. I would say like my style is more heavily influenced by some R&B, some rock and stuff like that. So getting to meet different musicians was a good thing for me, because when I first started with that group I was with, we were more into just hip hop. But towards the end, when we started working with different producers, I started bringing in some of my friends from like the west side of Brooklyn and getting them to produce our tracks, which were more like rock based and stuff like that. Because I had always wanted to play the guitar. I had a guitar. I had an acoustic one in my house. It wasn't mine, and it was right-handed. And my stepdad, I was like, "Whose is this?" And he was like, "It's mine." And I was like, "Can I have it?" Because I've never seen him play it. And he was married to my mother by then for like more than 10 years. And I never saw him play it. And he was like, "You can have it if you learn to play it." So I was always interested in music with instruments and stuff like that. And while I was a solo artist, just doing open mics and stuff like that, I ended up meeting, like I said, some of the best bass players and guitar players that opened me up to like a whole huge door of music and stuff. So at that time, I was just getting myself together, learning about different types of music. And then I got to a point where I could start making my own music. So I got the software, I got the Mac, I got the Logic. I started making my own tracks and stuff. And I was like, I've got to get out there. Like, it's something weird with music and me. It's like I'm a dancer and a musician. So when I'm not doing one, I'm doing the other. And I can easily live in one world and not necessarily, feel bad about not putting my all into the other world, because I'm still doing my art technically. But I got to a point in dance where I was like, I had my own business. Like I was like an independent contractor. So I was able to live my life. I had like made the dream that in dance. So I was like, well, what about the music? Like, so that's when I started telling myself, like, you have got to, like, I had a lot of disappointments musically, a lot. But I was like, you're going to be so pissed if you turn 50 and you don't go outside. You know what I'm saying? It's it's going to be, you can go a couple of years like, oh, I can, oh, I don't have to, oh, I might. But when you get to a certain age, you're going to be like, I really fucked up here. And I didn't want that to be me.
Right.
So I was like, get out there. So I just researched all the best open mics in the city, because I hadn't been going to any. And it changes from time to time. So I looked that up and I saw that there was one at the Parkside Lounge.
Yes.
All right.
So remember that Parkside Lounge. That'll come up later. Well, it's interesting you said that, because you don't want to have the regret of not doing it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was thinking when my sister told me that I could move here, because that was a really scary idea, because I didn't know anybody here but my sister.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I want to start a band, but I'm like, I don't know if I was in my mind. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna meet the right people just to make the music that I want to make, because I always wanted to do like a mix of rock and hip hop and like other things, but like I'd never heard anybody do it exactly the way that I heard it in my head.
Right.
But I also knew that I was just a piece of the puzzle. Like I never thought of myself as like a solo act. Right. So I was like, I feel like I have something. I feel like I could meet somebody somewhere and we could like make a thing happen.
Yeah.
But again, like I had no idea how the fuck that was gonna happen. So I'm just like, yeah, I guess I'll just pack up and move 1,000 miles away from home and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like it's a scary thing to do, but at the same time, I'm like, if I don't do that, I'm going to remember that forever, that I decided not to do it. And I'm going to be working at some desk job when I'm 50, and I'm going to be like, why is this my life? You know what I mean? So I went for it.
Yeah.
And I knew the first thing I had to do, I knew I had to get a job, because it's expensive here. And my sister was not going to let me stay on her couch forever. So the first thing I did was I got a job. And then once I got a job, then I was like, okay, now how am I going to meet people? How am I going to start a band?
Yeah.
I remember there was like an app called, what was it called? Like Vamper, I think. It was like Tinder, but for musicians.
Okay.
Where you would like upload like little pieces of your music, and then you could hear other people's, and you could swipe on if you wanted to talk to them or not.
Yeah.
And then if you both swiped, you could like connect. So I was like doing that for a while, and like nothing ever came out of that. And I'm like, okay, so I just got to start going out and like performing by myself.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't think of myself as like a solo artist at any point. I was like, well, I got to just do what I'm trying to do and like throw it out there, and then maybe eventually the universe will like bring it back to me. So I looked up, where are good open mics in New York City, right? And the one that kept coming up over and over again was the Inspired Word NYC at the Parkside Lounge.
Yeah.
So I started going there by myself, me playing a guitar and singing like every Tuesday for, I'm trying to think how long I was going there before we met. Probably a couple months, maybe 6 months.
Okay.
And then the whole thing is, and we talked about this before, like when I was doing the open mics, I'm like, the whole point of me doing the open mic is not to perform. The point is for me to get myself out there and tell people that I'm trying to start a band. Like that was the whole point. It was basically just an advertisement, and you could see it because you were there.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, this is kind of what I do. I'm trying to start a band. If anyone kind of likes what I do and you want to do it, then let's talk and let's see what happens, right? So that's what I did every day, every Tuesday. And some other open mics too, but definitely every Tuesday at Parkside Lounge for months until eventually we met.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, yeah.
I remember we did the same open mic one time, and again, I'm saying, hey, I want to start a band, blah, 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 blah. And you came up to me after and were like, oh, so like, what kind of music are you into, whatever.
Yeah.
And another person was there too,
Yep.
which we should talk about because we're doing the full story.
Yeah. I actually forgot his name. I don't remember his name.
Okay, so this is the thing. So it was me, Sifa, and somebody else at that open mic. We're like, yeah, we're all interested in starting a band. Like we all saw each other at the open mic.
Right.
So we all knew what everybody kind of brought to the table. So we were like, okay, yeah, well, we're all interested. Let's talk. And this guy, I mean, I think he gave us a different name like every time we talked to him.
Probably. And I just want to give him credit because he did bring us together, which is cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not really a big talker. I really don't like to do it, to network and stuff like that. But I will do it if I have a goal and I know I need to do something. I put myself out there, definitely. So I told myself, I'm like, Sifa, you know, when you get there, you can't just play and leave. You're going to have to stay till the whole shit is over.
Yep.
And you're going to have to keep talking to people. And when I got off the stage, that guy who was in the group with us, he told me, he was like, that was really great. I really liked this. So that helped break the ice with me going to talk. So at the end, I saw you and him talking. And you were talking about starting to jam or something like that. That gave me the release of fear to walk over you and be like, hey,
Yeah.
me too. Like, you know?
Yeah, that's funny. That's cool. Yeah. So we had a jam session in my apartment with the three of us. And like literally the first time that we met, we started our first two songs.
Yeah.
Actually 3 songs. Literally from the first jam session that we ever had, we had the start of Triple Crown, the start of Stars
and Words.
And Triple Crown and Words became the first 2 singles we put out. Stars we didn't put out till literally years later. But we'll get back to that. Yeah, so it was the 3 of us for a little bit, and it was hard to get a read on this guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like he gave us different names. He definitely gave us more than one name.
Okay.
But I remember liking him a lot because he was also from Florida and he had also just moved. So I'm like, fuck yeah. We ever were talking about like Florida or whatever. And then we wrote some songs. We jammed. And then like one day, like out of nowhere, I don't know. We probably jammed like twice, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then one day he just kind of texted us. He was like, yeah, like I don't think I could do this anymore. Like I'm actually homeless. And we were just like, oh.
Yeah.
What? Oh,
it was
shit.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, like we had no idea.
He was living in a shelter and he had to do curfew and stuff like that. I mean, I just think we just didn't really gel. I think recreationally, he was into more things. Yeah. And like we were like, you know, you could do that you could do that anytime. We're adults. Like you can party anytime.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't really sit down and practice every time. Like, you know, get people to come and like, so that's what Dan and I were more into. Like, no, we need to practice first. We need to because it's like time's ticking. Like, you know what I mean? That's how I felt. And I guess that's how you felt at the same time too. And I think that is what he read and couldn't get with. We were a little too driven for him. And he wanted to kind of like chill
jam,
more. Yeah. And we're just like, nah, like, do that somewhere
like you could do that whenever. Yeah. Well, then also I do remember this conversation. This is really funny. So I remember, we had started those songs and like he had some ideas. He's like I had a riff and he was like, well, why don't you play it lower? I remember like something like that. But like we kind of realized after he said that he was out that like everything that we had so far had basically come from us two anyway. Like as far as like the structure of the songs and like how it was. So we were kind of like, well, we could just still do it with just us two. I mean, we didn't, because he also played guitar and I play guitar. So it's like we didn't really even have like, okay, well, you're going to do this and I'm going to do this.
Right.
It was all just kind of like, let's figure it out. So then when he dropped out, we were just kind of like, well, I mean, we didn't really need that extra guitar.
Exactly.
So we could just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. Yeah. And then what was the next step? So then I guess we kept writing songs, right, to get ready to start doing open mics and shows.
And then we needed a production.
Oh, yeah. So at first, we literally were doing the open mics as like just me with a guitar and Sifa singing, like no backing tracks, no anything. Just like almost an acoustic type thing, even though I was playing an electric guitar. And then eventually, did I start making beats first or did we go to Dave first? I don't even remember. Dave, a producer that we knew.
I'm trying to figure out when we had Simba. I guess we got Simba later. I think it's all around the same time. I want to say we went to Dave first. We went to Dave first because you watched him and you were like, I can do all of this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I also should say that I started making beats when I was like 14 or so. So I already knew like my way around production like for a while.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any equipment here because I had just moved here.
Yeah.
I think this now it's all
it all pieces together now.
So we had these songs. We had Triple Crown was the first song we recorded. And you knew Dave, or your brother knew
my brother
Dave's
knew Dave.
brother.
Yeah, my brother was going to Long Island University, and so was Dave and his brother. So they all knew each other because my brother likes a lot of music and stuff as well too. I've learned a lot from him. But you know, you kind of all gravitate towards each other. And Dave and his brother, they were well on their way.
Yeah.
Like 10,000 views on YouTube and stuff like that with their videos and stuff. And Dave was making beats in his basement in Long Island, and that's how he met my brother. And then my brother suggested him to me as a producer. So we went out to Long Island, produced with Dave, and that's how we got Triple Crown.
Yeah, so I remember we took the train out to Long Island, and I was like, "Oh, I've never been to Long Island before." But yeah, we go over there, and we just literally like recorded in the basement for like 4 hours on like a Sunday night. But I remember because like he was a hip hop producer. He wasn't really ready to record guitars. I remember.
Yeah.
And like the way that we did it, and you can hear it if you listen to the recording of Triple Crown. The guitar wasn't plugged in to anything. I literally was playing an electric guitar, and the mic was just like up to it. So when you listen to it, and it's still, I mean, I still like the song, but in my head, it kind of makes me cringe a little bit because I know the guitar could have sounded so much better.
That's so funny.
But it shows where we were at the time.
It makes me cringe because I don't like to rap so much anymore.
That's funny. But yeah, so literally like, and then I remember being there and kind of like seeing what he was doing, and I'm like, I know everything that he's doing. I could do it, and I could also record the guitars because I've been doing that. So we went there again to record our second song, Words, which happened exactly the same. Actually, this is like a demonstration. So like literally like instead of having the guitar plugged into an amp or whatever, it was literally just like I would just have it like this.
Yep.
I don't like the word forever. It's got too many strings attached.
And those trips out to Long Island, that was like in the winter time, and it was kind of chilly.
Yeah.
So once Dan said that he could do all of this, I wasn't mad about that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to travel out on the island in the night, and it's like those trains, they're not as frequent as trains right in the city. You know what I'm saying? So you're waiting a minute at a cold station.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was really fucking cold.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was raining one time.
And it was dead. It's dead out there
fun.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got those two songs with him, and then I just started being like, okay, well I'm just gonna take over the production, and then I started making the beats on my phone actually.
Yeah.
Because I had already been doing that for a while. Because again, I didn't have any equipment, but iPhones come with GarageBand, and a lot of people don't realize like if you know how to use that shit, you can make pretty decent shit.
Oh, yeah.
It's really not. It's not a matter of the software. It's a matter of knowing how to use it.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
And I had already been doing it for like years, so I already knew a good idea of what to do. So then I just started making more beats on my phone, and then those would become the backing tracks that we used during the performances. You know, when we went out and did open mics or whatever, I would just plug my phone into the speaker, press play. You would sing over it. I would play guitar over it.
Yeah, yeah. And while we were working like on the music, we were working on the back end. We were like, oh, we need a name, you know, like, well, what do we call ourselves? And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I had no idea. We brainstormed on that. And then I was watching some British show. It's not like Top of the Pops or something like that, but I think it's like Dawn After Dark or something like that. And he was interviewing some rock and roll artist. And I was like, that After Dark sounds kind of cool. And then I told Dan, and I was like, I don't know, Sun After Dark? I have no idea. And then you were like, Sight.
Well, because I remember you said, what about like sun after dark? Because it's
Yeah.
it's like light, but it's also like moody at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really like the after dark part, but like sun doesn't hit hard enough. Like
Right.
something like the consonant or like the vowel sound, it's just not like biting enough. I wanted something more aggressive. So I'm like, it took a few days. It's not like I immediately was like sight after dark.
Right. In the movie, it'll look like that.
Yeah,
though.
in the movie it happens instantly. I get the text and I'm like, what if it was sight after dark? No, but I was thinking about it for a while. I'm like, okay, after dark is good, but there needs to be something a little more biting. And then eventually I thought, what about sight after dark? We were like, oh, that's
Yeah,
it. And
that's
then
good.
that was it.
Yeah, and it's like the word sight after dark. I feel like we just saw the logo at the same time. It's like
Yeah.
we just see like a revelation, definitely.
Yeah. Because we came up with the name and then we were like, okay, well, what should the logo be? And we
Yeah.
were like, well, what if it was just like a figure like walking through a door with like
Yeah.
all this light coming out of it, but like the figure it shouldn't be male, female, it should just be just human form,
Yeah.
like so that anybody can see themselves in it.
Yeah.
And we had the same idea. And I remember we went to a few graphic designers to try to make it.
Yeah.
Until eventually, this is funny. Because this is basically what I did with the production. Eventually, Sifa was like, "I'm just gonna draw it myself because nobody else is really getting it the way that we're seeing it."
I don't know what's so hard about what we're saying. Like, and you can see it's just a simple logo. So that I was on vacation talking to the illustrator, like just wondering why that person couldn't get it right. And then I just got so frustrated. And yeah, I was just like, I'm just going to draw it. And then it started to draw like all of our other like cover art and stuff like that. So it's pretty a self-run machine, Sight
Yeah.
After Dark.
Yeah, we do all this shit ourselves, including the videos and stuff, which we're about to get to about how that happened. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to mention. So I do want to say, so the whole thing with the inspired word, so the guy that runs it, Mike Geffner, shout out to Mike Geffner. So he basically has like a farm system going on, right? So the people at the open mics that he thinks are talented, he lets them do a feature spot where instead of doing 2 songs, you get like a full 45 minutes or a half hour, whatever.
Right.
And if you prove that you could bring people out to the feature spot, he has like a deal with this theater on the Upper West Side that he's like, if you do well here, then I could put you on in this theater. So he's basically like, I don't want to say grooming the talent because that sounds bad, but he's seeing who can really draw and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember we did our first feature there before COVID, and we had like 2 people, 3 people, maybe. And like, it was like my sister and your mom.
One friend of mine.
Yeah. But I'm just throwing that out there because it's something that's going to come up later. So that was like that was like the first real show that we did, I think.
Yeah.
Because everything else was open mics, like 2 songs.
Oh, yeah.
And then we went there and we did like an actual, set. Not long after that, we get into a new year, 2020. And we're thinking, oh, new decade, new year. What could possibly go wrong? Everything's going to be great. And that's not what happened.
Nope.
So obviously in March, there's this thing called COVID-19 and it shut the city down.
Yeah.
So obviously we weren't able to perform anymore and we weren't really able to focus on performance.
Right.
So we had to figure out, but this is the thing. We were both like, well, we're not going to stop. Like, we just figured this out. Like, we just started getting going. We're not just going to, it's kind of like a willpower thing. We were just like, it's not done.
Right.
Like, it's only done if we think that it's done and we don't think that it's done.
Right.
So this shit that's going on is not going to stop us. So then, I remember we started jamming. Like, I would, like, send you little snippet. Because at the beginning, like, we weren't even, like, seeing each other. Like, it was, like, total lockdown for, like, at least a month.
Yeah.
A month or 2. So I would, like, just send Sifa, like, oh, what do you think about this riff? And she'd be like, this is cool. And then she would send, like, back a recording of her singing. And, like, we actually started a few songs that became released that way. Like, Sucker Ways and Free World both started like that. But then eventually, as we got a little more used to the situation, we were like, fuck it, well, we're going to meet up again. We're going to practice in person because it is what it is. Like, you can't just stop living your life for that long.
Yeah.
So we met up again. We were like, the venues are all still closed. You can't play anywhere. Like, what do we do? Like, how do we continue? And I don't remember if it was whose idea it was to just start making YouTube videos.
I don't even remember either. I honestly don't. But it did show up. Did we? No, we didn't have a channel already. Did we make a video about ourselves?
I think we had just started a channel before COVID, but it was just like for like lyric. We had like one lyric video of a song.
Yeah.
We weren't making like content for YouTube.
Right. So I don't know. We just started putting stuff up like that. I don't know. Maybe it's because we were watching YouTube videos. Or I have no idea how it came up, but we did say that we want to do something, and we had to have done something before that. I guess it was the lyric video for it to be an idea.
Yeah, we definitely had a YouTube channel. It had like 10 subscribers. Right, and
Did
then
we make a trailer already?
I don't think so,
I don't
because
think so, 'cause the
I
trailer's
remember for
for
the
the
trailer
reaction
for the
videos.
original trailer for our YouTube channel, my hair was like really long because I couldn't get a haircut because everything was closed
Okay.
because of COVID. So I remember specifically that I was like, man, I look like shit. But whatever. So we were like, okay, well, we can't play out, so let's make some YouTube videos so we can at least keep ourselves busy so that the band stays together, and then you just see what happens. So we were just throwing shit at the walls. We were just doing like comedy skits.
Oh, yeah.
We were making music videos for songs that we already had.
Yeah. T-shirt commercials.
T-shirt, because we had just gotten merch, these T-shirts. Because again, we had just gotten the logo done. So all of this is happening like really in quick succession, even though the city is shut down and it felt like the world was ending. We're still doing all this shit.
Yeah, we're like, we don't care. You're gonna have to blow it up.
We're still alive.
Exactly.
So that's all we could do. All I can do is keep going forward, you know? So then, we just were like, well, let's see like whatever different kinds of content we can make and just like experiment. Because like literally what the fuck else do we have to do? And I remember at the time I watched a lot of reaction videos. Because I always thought it was fun. Because it was fun for me watching reaction videos to songs I know. Because it's like hearing them again for the first time in a way.
Yeah.
Like and living vicariously through the reactor. So I was like, what if we try making some reaction videos? And I remember we put a poll on our Instagram like, hey, we're thinking about doing reaction videos. What's a song that you guys would like to see us react to? And somebody, Ryan something, I don't even know who it was. I don't know how we knew this person. I don't even know if we actually met this person in real life or they just followed us on Instagram somehow. Somebody said Peg by Steely Dan. And we were like, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll do that. And all the other videos we were making would get like 50 views in like 2 months. You know what I mean? Not a lot.
Right.
And then we did this reaction video for Peg, and it got like 1,000 views in like a week.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, maybe we should do more of these. Maybe we should lean into this.
Yeah. Back in the days, I like that old format. I don't know, something about the couch I liked. It was more relaxed and chill. And then we stopped it more. I didn't mind that.
Yeah.
But people did.
Yeah. So we did again, we didn't really know how our format was going to be because we didn't even know if we were going to keep doing it. So we just kept going on, and then like next thing we knew, like people were watching them. So we're like, fuck it, let's just listen to more Steely Dan and react to Steely Dan.
Yeah, there were songs coming out of the woodworks. I mean, there were songs that from people that we had no idea made those type of songs. Like we heard Peg, and I was just like, is Michael McDonald in this band? Like, how did this happen? And then hearing songs this came later, but like an Elton John album that sounds nothing like Elton John now. And it's just like, just so many different artists that we were able to hear on the channel. So it just became like a kind of like whole avalanche of work. Crazy. Yeah,
it just became a whole separate thing, a whole life of its own. And then we realized that like, people were sending us so many different like requests, and we were like, well, how are we going to like figure out which ones we actually do?
Yeah.
Like, it's like I would love to just do all of them, but we clearly don't have the time to do that. So like, how are we going to narrow this down in like a way that's fair?
Yeah.
It can't, because I mean, we could have easily just picked random ones, but I'm like, I don't think that's really fair to like the people that are like coming to watch us, that we're like, oh, we're just going to pick the ones that we want. And then also, if we did that, we're not going to find anything that we wouldn't know, because we're only going to pick the ones that we want. Right. So then that's when we kind of figured out, we're like, okay, well, what if we made a Patreon? Like, if people are willing to like pay $1 to get a video or whatever, then they can tell us what they want us to react to. And that kind of makes it easier. And it's very transparent. We're not like, oh, it's a mystery how we pick our videos. It's like, no, join the Patreon, pick a video. No big deal. So I remember we started the Patreon. We were like, nobody's going to pay for this.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to pay money for this. This is insane. I can't even believe people are watching these. So it started as like pay what you want.
Right.
And we were like, everybody that signs up gets a video.
Yeah.
Right. So we had people pay like $1, $3 just to support whatever. We're like, okay, we appreciate it. We're going to make a video for you. And eventually that got too busy. So we had to start, then we had to make like a tiers, like it has to be this much, blah, blah, blah. And then
it had
kinda,
to be a tier. Because like to make one video, it took like 40 minutes sometimes.
At least.
Like, you know what I mean? Because you have to edit it. You have to make a thumbnail. You have to upload it. You have to wait for it. All this stuff like that. So it's like you're basically getting paid $1 an hour when you think about it, you know. So it just got like it got to be physically too much to do, you know, at the same time.
Exactly. So that's how the Patreon came about and how that all started, which is obviously we're still doing that. So by the time that really started getting going, the city was starting to open up again.
Yeah.
And we were kind of able to start playing again. I remember, the first thing we did back, I think we just played on the sidewalk. In front of the Music Inn. Shout out to the Music Inn on West 4th Street. Yeah, we literally just played on the sidewalk. That was our first time back. Because, again, you couldn't go inside anywhere in New York City. And then eventually things started coming back. I remember we did another feature at Parkside.
Yeah.
And that time we had like 8 people. So it was getting bigger, but still really far away from getting put onto this theater show, which was always like a goal for us.
Yeah.
Because we met at that place knowing that if you do well here, you can go to that theater. So it was always in our minds to get there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then, what else? I'm trying to think of what happened chronologically.
I know.
So we started playing shows. And then, you know, we would be coming over to like practice and record these videos and stuff. And we would always just be talking about music, be talking about our, you know, favorite artists, songs we like for them. And at some point we were like, well, why don't we just record this and like make it a podcast?
Yeah.
'Cause we were also listening to a lot of podcasts and stuff. We were like, we could do this. Like we could talk about music, like no big deal. We could talk for days about music. That's literally what we do all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we started the podcast, Music Maniacs with Side After Dark. And that's how that came about. And here we are, literally doing a podcast right now.
Yep. Everything comes full circle.
There's still more to go, but did we miss anything so far?
No, I feel like we hit like all of our little tentacles, like the podcast, the reaction channel, the merch, and the artwork and the production. Those are our tentacles, right?
Yeah.
Besides just being at the mic, doing what we do, singing and performing. I think we hit everything. You know, what do we talk about now? What's the future?
Well, we have a few more things that are the past. But I do want to say this, that, like I said before, so I moved here. I didn't know anybody. And moving to New York City can be a very humbling experience. Because I remember thinking when I got here, I was like, shit's definitely going to happen for me. I'm so dedicated. I threw my whole fucking old life away to come here. I left all my friends and family behind. It's got to happen. It's got to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then I started going to these open mics and I started realizing like, oh, okay, everybody else has already done that. You know what I mean? Like if you're like, unless you're from New York, every person that I was seeing at these open mics literally already did that. That doesn't mean shit.
Right.
It was like very humbling to me. Like I'm not special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody's trying to do this.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to make a difference is how hard are you willing to work?
How hard are you willing to work? Yeah. It's a couple of extra things that you cannot control that come along with that too. You know, how people read you, how you come across, whether you're the face that people like or not. Those things have, you know, but yeah, very humbling. And living in New York, very humbling too. Because like going on like auditions for like background roles and stuff like that. I remember thinking that I was so special, like, and walking in and seeing somebody who's like exactly my height, exactly my complexion, and even chose to wear the same colors and patterns that I did that day.
Wow.
I was like, what the
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I kind of like that though, because it does ground you a little bit.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's important. And I do think that's one of the best things about this city, that it's kind of like there's so much happening, and there's so much happening in every kind of different like realm of humanity, and there's so many people there that it's like whatever you're doing isn't really that important.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think it's cool. And I think it's motivating. Because like I
Definitely.
said, because all that really says to me is like, okay, I just got to work harder than everybody else. And that was kind of like my mindset the entire time, like even before we met. So I think that's why kind of we got along so well, because we both kind of had, and we never really talked about it until really like now, honestly.
Yeah.
But we both were just like, no, like we just got to work. Like we know that we can play music, lots of people can play music. And I'll say something else. Going to these open mics and all these shows and all these people that we met, there are people out there that are so fucking talented.
Yep.
Like supremely talented, like more talented than me for sure. But it's like you see their work ethic, and it's like you know that they're never gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember thinking that's not gonna be me.
Yeah.
And we said to each other, I remember one of the first open mics we did, there was this place we used to go, Pete's Candy Store?
Yes.
In Brooklyn. And there was people there that were like, they had clearly been doing the same open mics there for like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And we literally looked at each other and we were like, that's not going to be us.
No way.
And and that has been the reality. Okay, so we got the podcast. So then we started recording these songs that we had like started writing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Which we eventually released as our EP, Dark Days and Sucker Ways.
Yeah.
And when we put that EP out in March 2023, we had another feature. This was our third try at a feature to get to this theater.
Yeah.
And we made it the EP release show.
Yes.
Right? And at this point now, you know, the YouTube is doing decently well. We got a few thousand subscribers. We're going out and meeting more people again in the scene. So we're branching out a lot.
And we had an album from before that. Waves
yeah.
for Days.
Oh, did we even say that?
No, we didn't mention Waves for Days.
Holy shit.
But that
Okay,
was our first album.
So we recorded our first album, Waves for Days, during the height of the pandemic. Those are all the songs that we wrote before the pandemic when we were playing out all the time. And that whole album was also recorded on my phone because, again, we didn't have any technology. We didn't have any equipment. The MacBook that we've done all this shit on, like the new songs and even recording this podcast on, I literally bought it with my stimulus check from the government because it was a $1,200 check and a MacBook is $1,200. So I literally just put that shit right into Apple's pocket. I'm like, thanks, government. Here, Steve Jobs. Yeah, and then that's why the quality of our recordings got better after that. But then, we started recording those songs that we wrote during the pandemic, and they didn't come out till 2023, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because we were spending so much time working on the podcast and the videos and stuff. We almost lost track of the music for a little bit.
Definitely. That can happen. Yeah, so we put out Dark Days and Sucker Ways. So we're doing our feature. So we make the EP release and we do our feature and people actually come.
Yeah.
More than 10.
Yeah. We did well enough there that Mike was like, all right, you guys got the theater. We were like, fuck yeah. Because we literally, that was like our stated goal. They're like, we are playing the theater this year.
This year. We
said that. And we wrote it down, which makes it real. It's not real until you write it down.
That's right.
Yeah, so then we did that and Mike put us on the theater show, which was in May, right?
May 6th.
May 6th.
That went really well. It went so well that we got another one at the Triad coming this year, we think.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a date or anything, but he said you guys can definitely come back. So, but the thing is, right now, we're taking a little step back.
Yeah.
Because that was like such a big deal, really, for us. I mean, that had basically been what we had been working for years.
Yeah.
And we finally made it happen. That Triad Theater, Upper West Side, shout out. We're going to have the footage of that, the concert special out soon. And that literally just happened. And that felt like the first book of Sight After Dark had been written.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was from our first stated goal of meeting to getting there. That felt like one complete chapter.
Yep.
And then now it's like we're taking a step back to like work on some new music we haven't played out in like since that show.
Yeah.
But once we get these new songs, we're gonna be doing that and playing out more and obviously growing everything. But it just really felt after that theater like there was a sense of like completion in a way.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
And then that's really how we got to right here. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long journey.
It has a good one too, which is great. Lots of different trials and stuff like that. So that's pretty awesome. I'm glad that what we set out to do, we actually do it, you know, and we've made some like great friends online and in real life along the way, professionally too. And that's pretty awesome. So now we've got the future, right?
Yeah.
And what do? We make more music, we make more videos, and we make more friends.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, so I mean, we're working on some songs now that I think are really great. I can't wait to get these done and get these out for everybody. And then, we just want to keep playing more shows, probably play shows outside of New York City. And just keep doing it. I don't know. That's all we can do. Again, the whole thing is like all you can do is move forward.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Here we are. Again, really like thanks to all of you for watching this. We still can't believe that anybody gives a shit to watch anything that we do, to be honest. It's like we're literally just talking, and sometimes people like it. It's kind of crazy.
And every milestone is a real milestone, because I can remember with our YouTube channel, I can remember us being like elated that we had 100 subscribers.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. And then once we got to 1,000, it's like, oh my God, this is great. And then you get to 10,000, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, every step of the way, it's just like, this is kind of crazy that it's actually happening. Because again, like I said this before, but like when I moved here, in my head, I let myself know that it might not ever happen. Because I had no guarantee that I would ever meet anybody that I could make music with. Right? I was just like, this is what I want to do. There's no guarantee. Like life, there's no guarantees in life. You know what I mean? So honestly, I felt really lucky. I was only here for like 6 months before we met. Like that kind of blows my mind sometimes. Yeah,
it's really bugged out. And it's like New York is a place where you could get caught up, because like I've worked as a server. I've worked as a server before, and some really great restaurants, you know. And I knew a lot of actors that were there who had turned into professional servers. You know, you could tell, they'd be like, oh yeah, I was on All My Children. Oh yeah, I did this and that. And they totally have the face and the look for it, but they're like doing like 50 hours at the restaurant, and they're in charge of everything at the restaurant. And it's like, this has become your life. And it's kind of scary, because it's like, you're not going back to Cleveland, because technically you quote unquote made it. You're here, and you're working, and you can afford to live here. But it's like, you didn't become what you wanted to become, and that can easily happen to anybody here in New York. And that's kind of like, that's like the fear that pushes you forward, or the fear that can kind of like break you in a way where it's just like, well, what am I fighting for if, like, you know, everybody, this person seems to be fine, they didn't become an actress, they're okay, they don't seem depressed. But it's like, just knowing that you living in New York, you wanting to do your craft and stuff like that, doesn't mean anything.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, why I find it motivating to be here in a way, because it's like, you have an idea of what you want to do, but just because you're here doesn't mean that you're doing it. You know what I mean? And I think that took me a second, because like for a while I was like, I can't believe I even live in New York. Like, I hear so much music about New York, so many people from New York making music. My favorite rapper growing up was Biggie. I just heard about Brooklyn all the time. And for like, sometimes still, I'm like, I can't believe I live in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? And it's easy to get wrapped up in just that. But you got to remember, I'm like, it's easy for me, because I had a clear and stated goal when I moved here. So if I'm ever not doing that, I feel like a piece of shit. I'm like, why am I here? I'm like, I could just be home in sunny Florida right now and not be dealing with this fucking garbage everywhere and fucking rats running around. Like, I moved here for a reason.
Right.
So if I'm not doing that, then why am I here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, again, like, I really do find living here being very motivating in a way, because you can either let it, there's two ways you can go, like you said. You can either kind of let it win. You can let it be overwhelmed, or like, there's so many people here, I'll never make it, blah, blah, blah. Or you can be like, all I can control is what I do.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to do is work as hard as I can to make my dreams happen. Everything else is outside of my control. That's it.
Yeah. That is it in a nutshell.
So I want to say to anyone watching this, and I know this sounds corny, and people say this all the time, if you have a dream, you got to just go for it. I mean, you're the only person stopping you.
Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to. And you only have one life. So it's like, you know, everybody wants to, you know, your parents, I don't know, probably be people you're in relationships with, they like tell you ways that they want your life to go. But at the end of the day, it's your life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Like I gave up on that I don't want to look stupid so long ago in life. Like, I have no problem looking dumb or stupid in front of somebody. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because that's how you know who you are. That's how you test exactly what your limitations are, by just putting yourself out there. And you don't know, you may think that you're going to look dumb or you're not going to sound great or something, but that's just you. Like, you're not performing for you. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you got to just put yourself out there. I think that's the main thing, because it's like, if I decided to like say, okay, well, I've already made it in dance and stuff like that, I could just keep building my dance business, and I don't even have to write songs. If I didn't go outside and go to the open mic, then it's like I'd still be in my room, like, or in my apartment just doing dance and stuff, and that's okay, but that's not everything you want to do. So I feel like Sight After Dark is a really great name for us too. because like we've definitely been in places where it's like, okay, you can see past where you are right now. You can see into like where your goal is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can walk through that door in the logo, like, you know, you can walk through it, and all the colors can either be behind you or in front of you or both. It doesn't matter. But I definitely feel us going for our goals brought us together. You know what I'm saying? Like that we were on the same pathway before it became two people on one pathway in a way, right? Like,
and that's even what Mike says at the open mic. She's like, I remember them coming separate, and then one day they only came together. it's like yeah, and that's been what it's been for like 4 years or whatever. It also blew my mind because we didn't do this on purpose, but we realized when we came up with the name afterwards that the acronym is SAD, which is funny. And then also, if you take SAD, it's also Sifa and Dan.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, this is like meant to be the name. This was always the name. We just had to find it.
Yeah. Yeah, so cool.
And now it's trademark, so don't even fucking try it. All right. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's as full of a story as we could possibly tell of how we got here, how this all came about. So thanks again for all you guys for watching us, for being along with us.
Thanks,
we really appreciate you guys. We hope that this was like entertaining. We hope that you guys enjoyed this like insight into like how this all came about. And we will be back with the podcast. Just going to be a little bit, like I said, we have a lot of other projects we just want to put a lot of time into to make sure that they're really right. And we don't want to be, we don't want to spread ourselves in too many directions.
Yeah.
But we do love doing the podcast. We'll definitely bring it back. And we just don't know exactly when yet. Mm-hmm. But it's going to happen. So thank you so much for being here, guys. We really appreciate you. Go listen to all of our music if you haven't. Go check out the Main Side After Dark channel. Anything else you want to tell them?
No. Goodbye.
Bye. See you soon.
I'd give